Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Green Earth podcast by DGB Group. In today's episode, we're joined by Nick van Heeswijk to talk about investments that aren't just profitable, but also deliver significant environmental and social impact. But before we begin, I'd like to remind you that the Green Earth podcast is a DGB Group initiative. DGB is a large-scale, nature-based project developer, and our goal is to help nature flourish and prosper. But now, with no further ado, here's my conversation with Nick van Heeswijk. Nick, first of all, thank you so much for your time, for being here, sharing this conversation with us. I'd like to, first of all, if you could introduce yourself to us and tell us a little bit more about Corekees.
Yeah, sure. Name is Nick van Heeswijk, very Dutch last name. I'm 33 years old and I live and work in Amsterdam. This is the Corekees office in Amsterdam where I'm right now. And back in 2018, I founded Corekees together with one business partner, who also happened to be my cousin. The only cousin I can work together with. She's in charge of the finances. I'm in charge of, everything else. And Corekees is a sustainable investment platform. That's the summary of me, I guess.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. And Corekees is a sustainable investment platform, as you said. So what do you do on a day-to-day basis and what is the current focus for you guys?
Yeah. So what we do is we find projects around the world that make an actual impact, nature-based projects mostly, but also that generate a economic value. So we believe that impact is only valuable if you have an economic model behind it. So we find projects that have a measurable impact, but also generate return on investments for our investors. So we have a network of investors, retail people like you and me, who invest in a project that they're choosing. And right now we have 7 projects around the world that vary from bamboo in Portugal to a piece of the Amazon in Brazil to beehives in Kenya. And the investors get money back from selling the honey from the beehives in Kenya or the harvest of the Amazon bananas, coffee, limes, etc., or harvesting the bamboo in Portugal and selling it on the market. That's basically it.
That's really interesting. And are you also developing the projects, or are you just acting as a investor for the projects?
Yeah, we're not per se on the ground. We always visit the projects and we know them. We don't actually plant the trees with our hands ourselves, but we quite actively manage it. So, for instance, a crowdfunding platform connects the investor and the project together, and they leave it as it is, so to say. We're actively, constantly in contact with them. So, what you ask, what we do on daily basis, it's mostly talking to the project, managing it. Hey, what's going on? What's happening? How can we help? What are the developments? That's the main part of our job.
That's really, really interesting because it's a different approach to creating sustainable projects, right? Usually when we think about any sort of sustainability projects or carbon unit projects, we think about, let's get this plot of land, plant a lot of trees, and that's it, and sell carbon credits later. And now what you're saying to me is that you're actually getting physical things out of that land as well. For example, the honeys in Kenya or the bamboos in Portugal. I think it's a really interesting approach to combine both economic and sustainable development. How did you come across this idea?
Yeah, to answer your questions in 2 sides. First of all, I think that's quite an important part. We don't try to make money from the impact itself. We want the impact sort of to retire with the investor, with the customer, but we want the nature itself to generate the return on investments. That way, the impact's actually, if you sell the impact back again to somebody who pollutes, then the world will be kept at neutral, and we want to make the world a little bit better. And as it always goes, we have 7 projects right now. Our first project, we ran into it coincidentally. So my partner and I, my cousin, were both consultants. She was a financial consultant. I was a marketing consultant. Didn't really feel like we were doing anything, big companies pushing paper around. I wanted to do something with purpose, but wanted to do it on a business way, not just charity. And the first project, actually a project in Brazil, or in Paraguay, where we plant trees, and those trees have little nuts on them. And if you harvest them and crush them, oil's in, and you can refine that oil into renewable fuel as an alternative to fossil fuel. And one of our uncles actually is the founder of that project. So he still has it. It's huge over there. We're just one of the many customers now. And that's how we ran into it, and that's where it started.
Cool. That's really interesting. So the valuation and the profit that your investors get, they are directly from the products that are generated in those projects. You don't have any sort of valuation, sort of carbon credits or anything like that.
No, mostly no. The harvesting itself comes from the profits come from harvesting profits, basically. We have one project that also has carbon credits. It's our bamboo project in Portugal. Our investors buy a bamboo plant and they get the return on investment from it. But they also have the carbon credit, but it's quite expensive as well. And for retail customers, if you purchase a bamboo plant for, I think it's 168 euros, then you don't really have a need for carbon credit. It's more for the big corporations that want to have a certification. For normal people that like to invest a little bit in nature, they just want to make sure there's an impact, a verified impact, but they don't need a certificate for it. Yeah, so we try to separate those two.
Got it. Yeah, makes perfect sense. I think this is a very interesting idea. And you mentioned that you started your project in Paraguay. What is the name of that first project?
It's the Pongamia project. That's the name of the tree, actually. Yeah.
And from the nuts of those trees, you actually make fuel. Is that the case?
Yeah. Yeah. So our customers can actually buy a tree. Each tree is a financial product. It's a bond as well. So basically, you're loaning us money. But in the end, you're planting a tree. One Pongamia tree it's our most affordable bond. It's 22.5 euros. And that tree is yours for 20 years, so quite a long time. And after about 4 years, the tree is old enough to produce the first nuts, because you buy a little tree, we plant it in the ground, and it needs a little time to generate the first nuts. And then from the 4th year on, each year you get a little more of those nuts. And each year, all the nuts are harvested together. They're being sold and they're being crushed, and the crude oil comes out. Like if you crush a peanut or an olive, there's oil inside, and that oil can be sold to a refinery and refined into a direct alternative to fossil fuel. So it's a green alternative. Yeah. So sustainability-wise, that's the easiest way to make your car green. Is just put some green stuff in instead of inventing a whole new green car.
That's really interesting. And is the fuel that is generated similar to like the ethanol thing that they do in Brazil with sugarcane and stuff like that?
Yeah, a bit. Yeah. It's quite similar. Yeah, it needs to be blended, and it's mostly used right now for diesel, so for the industrial sector, but also looking into aviation fuel and also looking to other applications. But it's quite similar to the ethanol world in Brazil. Yeah. You guys in Brazil are quite ahead of us for that matter in Europe, that you can choose the two.
Oh, yeah. We definitely can choose the two. And actually, there are places in Brazil where ethanol is actually much cheaper than gasoline. But it depends where you live. For example, where I live in Porto Alegre is not as it isn't worth it from an economic standpoint if you're a consumer, because you get a little bit less mileage out of per gallon, but it's the value is not as cheaper. But if you go up north, like if you go to São Paulo or to those cities more from the central part of Brazil to the north, it's much cheaper. It's actually cheaper to run your car on ethanol than gasoline.
Is it really? Yeah, because it is a bit cheaper than gasoline, but it's also less efficient, right? Gasoline, you have more miles on your car. So I'm always told when we go to Brazil, if you rent a car, you need to give it back full, put in ethanol, because it's cheaper. If it's for yourself, make the calculations on how much miles you get for your ethanol or gasoline, and it depends on where you are in Brazil.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's also the little naughty part of it is that ethanol is less efficient in terms of mileage, but is more efficient in terms of power. So your car gets a little tiny bit more powerful. You get like, I don't know, maybe 1/2 or 2 horsepower more out of ethanol. So
it feels nice.
People that like doing, irresponsible things in traffic, like myself, like ethanol because of that.
Oh, nice. It's a good example, right, of the industry. I mean, we have battery-powered cars now and all kinds of alternative energies and engines, etc. But if you just replace the fossil fuel with something green, then in the industry, the whole logistics are already there. And that's what we think, at least. Those are the kind of projects that can make a real big impact on a short period of time.
That is definitely true. And what kind of returns can investors expect from these kind of projects? For example, taking this Paraguayan project, because there's not just the growing of the trees, there's also the processing of the nuts and all that. Or do you just take care of the trees? If I do buy one tree, for example, you mentioned it's 22 euros, what kind of returns can I expect out of it?
Yeah, each project has an average return on investment of about 7 to 8% per year. So that's fairly interesting. But the downside of it's that usually they're quite long periods of time. So the bond maturity is long. And if you invest in nature, it takes a while before your investment is up and running. So in the case of the tree, you need to wait 3 years. There's no return on investment. And then from the 4th year on, it increases until the 7th. And then the tree is mature. And then from 7th year onwards, you get a lot of return on investment to compensate for the first years. So as always in nature, it's quite solid, but it takes a little while. Yeah, our projects vary between 5 and 20 years. Shortest is 5 years. And the longest project, the Pongamia project, is 20 years.
Got it. And when you mentioned that you own that tree for 20 years, after that time has passed, what happens?
Usually it goes, in case of the trees, it goes back to the landowner. So what happens on a big scale is we sort of lease land from a local landowner, return investments or a return for that, for leasing his land. Whatever's left of the tree goes back to him, provided that everything has been paid and everything, no harvest has been missing, etc. Otherwise, we can extend the bond maturity. But if all goes well, then after 20 years, people have their money back plus interest. And then we say whatever's left of the tree is for the landowner to harvest and to sell the nuts.
Oh, got it. That's really interesting. So, and are there any kind of plans or any kind of arrangements, for example, for those that do want the sustainable impact more than anything else, to make sure that this tree is not going to be cut out after 20 years? Or is this tree still productive after 20 years? How does that happen?
Yeah, so 20 years or 30 years is about the maximum length of a contract you can have. I mean, that's as long as we're on this planet, just about. It doesn't sound that long, but it's really long. It's far in the future. There are not really insurances on what to do in 30 years. You can't make somebody promise, hey, in 30 years, I'll do this, because you don't know what the world's like. The biggest insurance you have is that you prove to the landowner, like, hey, if you harvest the nuts of the trees, that's more valuable to you, that will generate you more income than if you cut down the tree and sell the wood, or if you burn down the field and have cattle on there or anything else. And that's what we try to do as well with most of the projects, prove to the local community, like, hey, this is the way you can use nature for your benefit, instead of cutting it down and doing something less economically attractive. Yeah, so that's the guarantee there is, if that makes sense.
Got it. Yeah, it's funny because this is exactly where I was getting at, because when it comes to guarantees, we can guarantee whatever we can, but at the same time, there are some things that they're just, the guarantees that we give are more fictional than actually real. Like if we sign a contract 50 years from now, but 15 years from now, we don't know how the world is going to look like. So that contract might not even be valid, right? But one thing that I think it's even more, it gives it an even better guarantee than a contract is incentive, right? Yeah. So if you have an economic incentive to leave that line the way it is, or continue operating the way that is operating, it's a better guarantee than a contract, than that people are actually going to take care of that land and make sure that it's still sustainable. So my question for you is, how difficult it is to find that economic incentive to do things in a sustainable way, rather than just take out all the trees, sell the wood, and make it cattle pasture?
Yeah, well, the only thing you sort of know for sure, which is kind of a sad fact, but it's true, is that in 30 years from now, people will still be interested in making the most money out of whatever there is. So that's the biggest insurance there is. And for us, we looked at several projects before we started, like, hey, how can we have an impact on the world, but also have an economic model behind it? And we found out that everybody says, I want to have an impact, I want to invest my money good with my money. But in the end, what really makes them make the decision is the return on investment. And I thought, okay, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Let's combine the two. Let's make an impact with your money while making a return on investment. And that's, to give it an example, another project of ours is actually in Brazil. and where you're right now, and all up north in the Amazon forest, in Roraima. You know it. It's one of the bigger states there. It's above the state of the Amazons. And what we do there is we reforest with a local partner. We reforest pieces of the Amazon that has been deforested previously, but we do so with a certain configuration of trees that, first of all, absorb a lot of carbon, but also are there natively, but also generate economic value. So harvesting profit. So we plant back banana trees next to lime trees, next to etc., and different species of timber trees, which sort of recreates the forest. It won't never be as good as it is, but it's closer than a cattle farm. And right now, the next door neighbor sort of says, who's a cattle farmer, and his father was also a cattle farmer, and his father above him as well, or a soy farmer. You see, okay, the only way I know how to make money, how to make a living, is by burning down the Amazon and putting my cattle down. But right now they say, hey, if I reinstate the forest, if I actually repair the forest, so to say, I stand to make more money than I do than by planting a soy farm or putting cattle down. And that's, then you have an economic incentive for them, like, hey, I won't burn down the Amazon anymore, but I'll do this configuration that this project does. And that actually has an economic incentive to regenerate the forest. Yeah, so you need to connect the two. Yeah.
That's really interesting. So it's actually more profitable for the farmers to have that sort of configuration rather than just burn everything down and have it as monocrop agriculture or cattle ranching.
Yeah. You need a bit of skill, obviously. And we started small. This project's now expanding quite fast. It's really, really big. But yeah, in the end, if it's at scale, then it should be more financially interesting than putting cattle down. Yeah, especially in the Amazon. That's the most fertile land in the world. So it should be quite easy to make a profit there.
That's really interesting because if it's a clear economic incentive and it has the added benefit of the sustainable incentive, to me, that's almost like a no-brainer. So what is the other side of this coin? Like why, in other words, why isn't everyone doing this?
Yeah, that's the $1 million questions you ask.
Right.
We get this question a lot, actually. I don't have the answer as well. I always ask, why isn't everybody doing this? I think it's two-sided things. First of all, it's new. And when things are new, people are always a bit skeptical. And secondly, to find a project like this, manage it, fund it, actually find people who are, I won't say crazy enough, but who are willing to fund it, finance it, and manage it to a point that it actually stands to make a profit. It takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of effort. Each new project of ours takes about 6 months minimum. We fly there, we spend hours on Zoom calls, we do all kinds of due diligence, etc. If you were an investment fund, you have 1 or 2% of the investment, you won't be able to do this. And the only way to, first of all, invest the money, but especially get your invested money back, is to really have a lot of attention, have a lot of time and effort and money to develop this. So I don't think many people, many companies have the patience to do that. We do, we like it, and it works. So I think that's the difference. Yeah.
That's really interesting. And is the product that's coming out of those projects in any way, shape, or form different? Because, well, let me give you an example of what I thought. Because here in the south of Brazil, it's very common, not only in the south of Brazil, but also Paraguay, Argentina, and Uruguay. People drink mate, which is almost like, it's kind of a tea thing. And there are two primarily different types of mate leaves. The ones that are planted and the ones that we call it native, which are taken out of the forest, essentially. The ones that are planted, they have a lot of sun exposure, so they're more bitter. And the ones that are native, they don't, because it's a fairly short tree, so it grows beneath the largest trees from the forest. So they're not as bitter, and they are actually more expensive than the planted ones because they taste better. If supposedly we were to do a project like that in order to plant that specific kind of tree, you not only would get the benefit of everything, nature, and also the richness of the soil and all that, because you have other trees, but you also get the added value of the product being more expensive because it is a superior product. Is that the case for any, is that a way of thinking for any of the projects that you work on?
Well, yeah, what you talk about is wild harvest, basically. So you go into the forest and you just harvest whatever mate leaves. I guess that's what it is. You can find. And in the beginning, as always, it's a sort of a premium product. So people need to be willing to pay a little extra for the taste, for the organic stuff, for the etc. And that's the case with most new things, I guess. And to do this, mate, I'm not sure, because wild harvest is not really something you can do at scale. But any investment project or any impact project needs to be done at scale as well, in order to be economically interesting enough to invest in instead of a monoculture. And that's possible as well. But it takes a while before you get to reach that point. And it takes for the investors and for the company itself, it just takes a while before people see, hey, this actually works.
But what I meant is, are any of your current projects generating products that have a premium because of the way that they are doing things?
Yes, and now I understand your question. We also have, for example, we have a spices project in Nicaragua, so in Central America, in Honduras and Nicaragua. And basically what they do is you have a lot of coffee farmers over there. And they have some problems with their income because climate change, it gets warmer there, and the coffee plants there have a disease. And they have a little less profit each year because, well, there's just less harvest. What we do there is we go to the smallholder farmers with a local partner once again, say, hey, are you willing to plant next to your coffee, to plant a little ginger and turmeric and cardamom, the high valued spices. And the first year, just put a little bit and see if it works. And the only deal is that whatever's ready to harvest, we buy it back from you. And that way the coffee farmer has a second stream of income. That actually, from all those little farmers, all the spices are harvested together and brought to one centralized factory, so to say, and it's prepared to be sold on the world market. It's sold to companies like Starbucks. Starbucks only wants to buy the spices, the ginger for their tea, if they're organic and good for nature, etc., etc. So for that matter, there's a premium to it. There's sort of a value to it. And I think that's what's needed as well to get a project like this on scale to be interested. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that kind of does, because the first thing that I can think of, I have a marketing way of thinking. So the first thing that the first thing that I always think is, okay, how is this? This is a different product because it is just a way of planning it, or it makes it a little bit special. But how can you make it so special that people want to buy something special, right? Because that can even, I don't know, scale even more the things. If you can sell the same thing for a higher price, as a really interesting idea. But
for us, it's because in the end, it's hard to find the right projects. I mean, I think for every 100 projects, we publish 1 or 2. That's it. So it's fairly hard to find a proper project. For us, the hardest part is to find people that are willing to invest in the project. So investors, customers for us. And for them, it's just, next to the good feeling and the impact, it's just another financial product. They want to make a return on investment, and they want to trust that their money will actually come back and will be put to good use. So for us, the hardest part is to create a financial product that's attractive enough to our investors that they actually invest money in the projects, but it's not so expensive for the projects that they have to pay so much to Corekees investors that it's not viable anymore to receive funding from our platform. You understand? That's sort of the balance you need to maintain. You need to have both parties happy, otherwise it can't work.
That's really interesting. What you said about out of 100 projects that you screen just maybe 1 or 2 pass the test, and you actively start investing in it. What are you looking for when you're looking for projects? What are the aspects of these projects that make you think, yes, this maybe is going to be a good investment decision?
Yeah. So we have 3 main requirements, and if those are met, then we look further into a project. And the main requirements are every project needs to have a measurable and verifiable impact. And that's quite hard to do because everybody nowadays calls themselves sustainable, doing good for the world. But if you really go into it, not all of them are. They need to generate economic value in the form of return on investment. What comes in must come out plus a little extra. And for instance, a project in Kenya needs to have more return on investment than a project in Germany, just because of the risk. And all the projects need to be scalable. So we spend a lot of time and money to vet these projects, find them, do the due diligence, visit them, build a relationship. We can't do that for just a small pilot project that we launch on a platform. We need to be able to grow together with them. If those 3 requirements are met, so impact, return on investment, and scalability, Then we enter due diligence. We have all due diligence where we look at absolutely everything of the market, the company, the team, what have they done before, what are the prices, what is the political situation of the country, and that takes that's the gist of our work. That takes a few months usually, and then the last step is that we actually visit. I mean, we can do all the modeling and the Excels and the due diligence behind your laptop like this, but you can never replace actually walking in a field with a local entrepreneur and local farmer. And immediately, if they're into it, if it's their company, if their eyes start to twinkle, like, hey, this is my banana, and I put it next to a timber tree because the shade helps it. You find out a lot more if you walk in the field, and that's the last part of the due diligence. And if that's also passed, then we publish it on our platform. Yeah,
that's really, really interesting. And what are the top reasons a project gets halted and doesn't move forward?
The main one is the risk mitigation, but it's you have many risks. I think the team behind it is the most important. I mean, you can have the best product in the world. If the team is not capable or not motivated, especially in these projects, then it's not going to work. They need to be. It's a kind of a weird combination. I mean, they need to know how to work a financial model and have a really good grip on their organization, but at the same time, they need to have a piece of land and a farm in the middle of nowhere, and being able to know how to work the soil and what kind of seedlings they need to use. So that's kind of an odd combination. Secondly, it's the financial risks. It's just if the financials don't match, if we don't trust that the money that comes in will actually come back, then we can't do it either. And third is the impact. We have beautiful projects that in the end, if you really dress it down, there's not really much of an impact. If we invest in it versus if we don't invest in it, the world doesn't really care. It stays the same. And then it's not an impact investment anymore. And then we won't do it either. So those are the three main reasons not to publish a project.
Got it. That makes sense. So what I'm hearing is something very, very similar to the VC world. You're pretty much just harvesting sustainable, quote unquote, startups and trying to look to essentially invest in companies that you believe are going to work in 5-10 years from now.
Yeah, I think we're right in between the VC, so the carbon credit world, and the equity investment world, because we don't take equity in the companies. We loan them money and they pay us back plus interest for the harvesting. I think it's sort of in between. We bet on the value they make with the projects based in nature, but we invest in the company, but not with equity. And the money can't come out of carbon credits, but out of the product, the nature product, so the harvesting profits in most cases. Yeah, so it has its similarities. Yeah, I understand what you mean.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like from the psychological and human standpoint, right? You're basically looking for partners that are going to work for a long, long time, and you essentially trust them to deliver the value.
Yeah,
that is really, really interesting. So, how long have you been doing this?
So we planted the first tree in 2018, in the July of 2018, so the European summer, and it took us about 4 years to really understand how you manage a project, how to scale it. So we had this one project, the Paraguayan tree project, for the first 4 years, something like that. And then 2021, we figured, let's try to see if this concept, so the whole impact and economic value together, if it works for more projects around the world, because there must be more concepts like this. Then we launched a second project, the elephant grass project in Kenya. I mean, I think we were to raise 150,000 euros, 155,000 euros, and we gave ourselves about 2 months to raise it, see if everyone and get anybody interesting, and it was sold out within 24 hours. So we're really surprised, like, okay, what's happening here? Maybe our customers have all the trees they want; they just want new products, and that's when we switched to a sustainable investment platform. So that's the year after we launched 4 new projects. Right now we have 7 in total. And right now we're expanding those projects. We don't want 100 projects. We want 1 or 2 new ones each year and want to scale the other projects. And it's going quite well. Last year, out of the 7 projects, 4 of them paid back their first return on investments. So that's sort of a proof of concept. It's a big thing for us. I mean, a lot of people said, like, it's easy to invest your money in Brazil, in Kenya, in Paraguay. But let's see if something comes back. I mean, that's kind of difficult to do. And now 4 out of the 7 projects paid something back. So most of them are on schedule. And now we see that it's sort of picking up. Now people start to believe it. Yeah, because most say, like, hey, why isn't everybody on this? Like you said as well. And right now, if you start paying back, people start believing you. So that's it's becoming a little bit easier to raise funding.
That's really interesting. Yeah, that's one of the questions that I was going to ask, because on the carbon world, which we're talking about, carbon credits and all that, a major, factor that holds investors back is the fact that we don't know what's going on. We don't really know what is going to happen 5 years from now. Maybe like, is the legislation going to approve these to be used? Is the legislation going to change their mind? It's still scientifically and politically not settled yet for us to know. But in your case, it's not about that. It's about a tangible product that's actually going to be sold later, right? So since you already have your first return, you actually made money out of this. I imagine it's much easier to convince people now to hop on that board.
Most current clients and new clients want to invest in additional projects and want to invest more and more. And the easy part from our job is, in comparison to the carbon credit market, is that we work with products that are known already. So if you have a beehive that produces honey, that's been done for ages, for thousands of years. And we plant bananas and coffee in the Amazon and bamboo in Portugal. And it hasn't been done already. All the projects are known. You can just find a buyer on the world market, and it's easier than setting up a whole new concept. That comes with a whole new set of challenges. That's a little upside of our projects, I guess.
Definitely. And I'd love to ask about your investors. What kind of people are interested in this kind of investment? What are their main concerns? Of course, I imagine what is the return is going to be and how safe the investment is top number one. But what do they care about, and why are they interested in this kind of investment?
So what we see is that most of our investors are you and me. So young people that are old enough to have a job and earn a little money. I mean, investing is a product of luxury in the end, let's be honest. But they're young enough to have a sustainable mindset. They want to make an impact, want to do something good. And in addition, an added advantage also of young people is that we are a bit worldly. So we dare to invest in another continent. We don't mind if our money is invested in your case, in Europe, but in our case, the other way around, in Brazil, Paraguay, or Kenya. And the older people always like, I don't want this. This is too far for me. Now that it's picking up, now that projects are paying back and our new projects are being sold out, we see that older people also tend to invest a little. And that's mostly because they want to leave a better, greener world for their children and grandchildren. They work their entire lives, they have some money on the bank, and they put it into all conventional financial products with the stock markets, the bonds, etc. So I also want to do something good with my money. So slowly but surely, we see that our client population is getting a little bit older, but most of it are between 30 and 45, something like that. Yeah.
Interesting. And what are the top 5 questions that people ask you when they're deciding whether to invest or not?
Number one is, it's too good to be true. Why isn't everybody stepping on this like you? And yeah, it sounds like a nice problem to have, but I still don't know how to solve it after 5 years, because it's not too good to be true, guys. Trust me. But everybody wants to be sort of the second investor. Like, hey, if somebody else does it, then I'll go along. But you need somebody to have the first investor. That's why you need to work so hard for the return on investments to prove that it actually works. And the other is that people are a little bit afraid to invest far away. So we need to see or mitigate the risk. What's also very difficult in our case, because it's investment, but it's a retail investment. We also have some companies, but it's mostly normal people that read online and choose the project they want to invest in on our website. We spend a lot of time figuring the whole company and the market out, but we can only pass so much of that information on to somebody because, well, people just don't have the attention span to read through our due diligence and concepts, etc. So we need to inform them, make them enthusiastic about it, but also say, hey, we are aware of the risk and this is how we deal with them, without overthrowing so much information and say, this is too complicated for me, I'm out. And that's always sort of the balance.
Cool. That's really interesting. So you've been doing this since 2018. And one of the things that everyone says about the sustainability world is that 5 years feel like 20 because things change so fast. What are the things that you have noticed that changed since you started that are different now? And what do you think is still going to change? What are your looks for the future?
We thought in the beginning, so a few years back, 7 years back when we started, that sustainability and impact was sort of a trend. Like, hey, this is hot right now and it's going to be something else next year, which seems to be that it isn't really. It's only picking up. Consumers are demanding that where they buy the products, that those companies are also more green, more sustainable, make more impact. And corporates are also more interested in the whole impact world. So that changes, and people also have an interest in purchasing these in conventional or nature-based solutions, nature-based products, because if your stock market goes up or down or something weird happens, your tree is still on the ground and the harvest still is there and people still need to eat. So it's sort of a steady-ish commodity for that matter. And that sort of, especially in these times, gives people a little bit of an ease of heart. Like, hey, whatever happens, whatever's going on, at least I still have my piece of the Amazon that produces bananas and my bamboo that's still needed. So that's we also see that people sort of take comfort in that.
Interesting. Got it. And what do you see for the future? What do you think? What is you now have 7 projects. You mentioned that your goal is to maybe add 1-2 a year and scale the ones that you have. But what? How do you see this market in the next 5 years or maybe next 10 years?
What we'd like to do is especially expand these projects. I mean, we spend so much time on those projects. The few that we have, we're really sure and we're really a fan of that. We want to help them grow. And on the one side, we can do that with just customers who can purchase a few trees a month or purchase a piece of the Amazon online. But next to that, in the end, we're doing this for the impact. I want to have a business. I want to make it as big as we can. Partly because it feels good to have a successful business, let's be honest, but also because it has a lot of impact effect in our case. And I think that we can do that by also providing access to these projects to companies, to the corporate market, so to the industry. And that's what we're figuring out right now. Like, how can we have these same projects, offer them on the institutional financial markets, see if they can step in. And then, well, there's your scaling. Then our projects can go 10 or 100 times as big, and that's where the real impact comes in. So that's the next phase.
Yeah, that would be really interesting, especially for, of course, there are certain activities that you just know that there are no ways of doing them sustainably. But now, out of curiosity, when we talk about these agricultural products that are known for being monocrop agriculture things like, I don't know, huge soy plantations or sugarcane, that kind of stuff. Are there any interesting projects that are doing those activities in a sustainable way? Because I believe that once you get to the big agricultural investors in the world, especially in I think I like it because Brazil is a super agricultural place, right? There's a lot of producing here. As soon as you get to them and say, hey, this is going to be cheaper and it's going to make you more money, or this is going to be more expensive now, but it's going to make you more money, I can see that trend shifting. But are there any projects that are interesting in that kind of end?
Yeah, the easiest part of our projects, of our investments, is selling the actual proceeds, so selling the harvesting profits. So everybody says, hey, how many trees you have? We want to buy all the pods from them, because the nuts from them, because we need the oil. And we say, okay, but in order to plant those trees or plant the Amazon bananas or plant the bamboo, we need funding and we need time. You need to put down your money. You need to wait for a few years, and then only after that we can actually sell you the proceedings. And the big, I think, Corekees especially is in the market of that dip. That's not really a bridge. That's not the gap. That's not really financeable or not really overcomable. Once we get those projects to a certain scale, then the industry will pick it up and say, hey, now we're interested. But yeah, somebody needs to bridge the gap. Somebody needs to give those projects an opportunity to prove that they actually on the right track and it can actually happen. So I think that's the bridge we're gapping right now. And once you get to that scale, then the industry will most likely follow. Yeah.
That's really, really interesting. So, Nick, what about, I know about the beehives projects on Kenya. In fact, DGB is partner with Corekees on that.
Definitely.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that project? What are you guys doing there?
Yeah, really nice project. It's, but I think all projects are nice, obviously. What we do is we go to local farmers, local smallholder farmers in Kenya, and we provide them with a beehive. So we build a new beehive and we give it to them together with training and the equipment that goes along with it. So the protectional chute to harvest, and there's a smoker to harvest the honey. Smoke makes bees a little sleepy, so they can harvest safely without being stung. And what we do, our clients back here in the Netherlands, they can purchase one beehive, one bond basically, sort of a beehive as a service. And from that, each bond that you pay, we can give one farmer one beehive, including all the equipment and the training, and we see that everything's being done correctly and safety, etc. And they pay back our investors by harvesting the honey each 6 months and selling it on the local market. We also have a partner locally that helps us with selling the honey, it's Akili. And that way, you're not giving that farmer a charity like, hey, this is a beehive, but you're enabling them as an entrepreneur to develop their business. They have the whole farm, whatever it is, next to it, they have their beehive. And each month or each year, they pay off a little more from the beehive, from the honey profits. And each year, the beehive is a little bit theirs. And after 5 years, they paid for it with interest, and they feel the ownership of the beehive, and they know how it works exactly because they have all had the training. So from that point on, they can just keep on harvesting the honey each 6 months, selling on the local market, and all the profits is theirs. So it's a really nice system which works both ways.
That's really, really interesting. One thing that this reminds me of, and maybe I'm getting a little bit too philosophical with this, but there's this book called Banker to the Poor, which is basically a guy from Bangladesh that invented what we call microcredit these days. It seems very similar, but on steroids, I would say, of what you're doing, because on his case, he was pretty much just lending money on lines of microcredits on local banks and all that, and people would pay them back and be able to, I don't know, the credit wasn't to build a company or something like that. It was for I don't know, buy a stove or buy a fridge to the little bar that the guy had. In this case, it feels like it's almost like that, but besides the loan to actually get the equipment to build the beehives and all that, there's also training involved.
Yeah, and in regards to Bank of the Poor, I heard of the book, I haven't read it, but I think what's been described in the book is what we use as well. The highest risk for investment-wise is, of course, that the farmer has a beehive and he doesn't pay back, as always. And you can't really control that out of an office in Amsterdam. Let's be honest, we can't fly there, go to the local farmer. So what we use over there, it's called it's table banking. So we give a few of those hives to a community of farmers. There was a community. The community is about, let's say, 20 farmers, and the eldest one is the boss of it all. So he speaks on behalf of everyone. He has a jacket on, etc. We've been to all those communities, and you speak to the elderly. You get a plate of honey as well, and you need to eat it. So it was an intense site visit, but it's part of it. And once, if one of those farmers is not able to pay back his installment, his loan, then the rest of the group takes care of that installment for him. So, okay, listen, for this time, we'll help you out because something unforeseen has happened. We always get our money back, but the rest of the group pays it. And that sort of social balance, that's the strongest sort of insurance you can have on microfinancing. Because if your friends say to you, hey, come on, Pedro, give me the next round of beers on you, it puts more pressure on you than if your boss says it, so to say. Afterwards, if you still can't pay, the beehive goes back to the community. And if they still don't pay, we take the hive out, put it to a new farmer. But that table banking sort of constructions, that makes that almost all farmers always pay their loan because they're being held accountable by their friends, by their colleagues. So that's, I'm not sure if that's mentioned in the Banker of the Poor as well, but that's one of the ways you can actually finance projects like this, microfinancing in countries like this. And you can actually still have sort of a financial insurance policy below it, which still works, which is manageable out of an office in Europe. It's nice, right?
That's really interesting. Yeah, to be sure, I'm not sure if that's the way on the book as well, because I'm going to be honest, I read that over 10 years ago, so I don't remember much of it. But what you said, if you would like to share about that, I would love to hear it, because it sounds really, the experience of going there and eating the honey with the farmers, you said it was an intense experience. Can you share how that trip was? What kind of things you saw there? What's life like in that place?
Everything is exactly the opposite as what we're used to right here, which is personally what I like most about this. So this was a project like any other. We came in contact with them through DGB. We talked to them for months. It was quite long with negotiations and finances. It's a financial investment in Kenya, so you need to do a lot of risk calculations, mitigations, etc. And in the end, say, okay, we've got everything worked out. The contracts there, the deals there. It's good for the farmer. It's good for the investor. And we still are able to manage the project. Let's visit there. We'd like to talk to the actual farmers if they have an interest in having a beehive, and if they know about beehives already, and if they realize like, hey, I'm loaning money from you basically in form of a beehive, and I'm going to pay you back. And then our local partner, who's in touch with all these communities, says, "Yeah, come here. We'll arrange a trip. We'll go around Kenya for about 4 or 5 days, and we meet up with about 3 of those communities of farmers per day." And my partner and I were in a car. We drove all through Kenya, and every time there were all the local farmers were grouped together. They showed what kind of beehives they had. They showed us their farms. They showed us the land. And I also wanted to prove, like, hey, we know beehives. We know how to have beehives, and we already do it. We just can't afford to purchase more beehives. That's where you come in. And the best way to prove that, obviously, is to have a plate of honey. Like, hey, this is already produced. So for about 5 days in Kenya, each morning and afternoon and night, we had a plate of honey, and we were supposed to eat it because they were really proud of it. At least this is our honey. Taste, it's really good. And you can't say no. I mean, you don't want to say no. So we spent a small week in Kenya eating honey, driving around, talking to all the communities, all the farmers. And it was an amazing experience, because that's when you really feel like, hey, these people really want your help. They don't want charity, but they want to be enabled as an entrepreneur to develop their business, their agricultural business. And this is if you connect that to people in the Netherlands, you can tell them, hey, this is the local farmer. You can give him a beehive. That's also the sort of the impact and the feel good of it. So this was one of our favorite projects, for that matter. Yeah, and still is. Yeah, it's still going on. Yeah, it's one of the projects that paid back last year, coincidentally, the first installment. Yeah.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that's right.
I can imagine that traveling around Kenya with the highest blood sugar you ever had in your life.
Yes.
Must be a really cool experience. When you were visiting these places and talking to the farmers and the communities, what is the main difficulty that you could identify in them? Is just really the financial burden of actually not having money to purchase new beehives? Or is it about training? What are the main difficulties that they face to actually get the honey?
Yeah, it differs between each project, obviously, and that's also the reason that most companies like this don't want to have a project like this, because it takes a lot of time to take an interest in the project and actually know what the biggest risk is and to solve it. So in case of the beehives, for instance, it's the fact that we have a local company, a trustworthy company that works together with these farmers. It has been working together for a long time, and they manage the distribution of the beehives, but also all the training, the safety of the harvesting. A beehive is not colonized. They go back to it and, hey, what's happening? Have you followed the menu? And that specific training, that management, that on-the-ground management, they go by there every few days or few weeks. That's what's make the difference. If you just give those farmers a beehive and a suit, say, good luck, I'll come back in half a year to harvest honey, it won't work. It will never work. You need to know that you have those logistics in between. And that's the case for all of those projects. So you need to you need to be on top of things. The whole summary is you really need to be on top of things. You can't invest money and say, I'll come back when the first payment is due. That just doesn't work. You need to know what's going on. So that's the biggest challenge, I guess.
That sounds like a great challenge. Well, Nick, first of all, I want to thank you for your time and for accepting to participate in this podcast. I think it was really, really an interesting and enlightening conversation that we just had here. We still have a couple of minutes left. I'd love to ask, do you have any final words that you'd like to share with our audience today?
No, I think, thanks for having me, first of all. Thanks for the invite. It was really nice. Really happy to participate here. And I think initiatives like DGB or your project, the carbon project around the world, and places where people, exactly like Corekees, where it's possible to run a project and make it successful, but people just don't have the attention span. We try to do the same. And I think those kind of initiatives, the real businesses, commercial businesses compared to impact, that's what the world needs right now. And we can't have enough of those initiatives. So that's why we're happy to be a guest in this podcast, but also to be able to work together with DGB, and let's see how far we can come. I think this is an increasingly people will be increasingly interested in companies and concepts like this. So it's I think you and I are on the right seats job wise.
Thank you for joining us today. I hope you found this conversation as insightful and interesting as I did. The Green Earth Podcast is a DGB Group initiative, and DGB is a large-scale, nature-based project developer. And our goal is to help nature flourish and prosper. If you want to read more about our projects, again, please check our website, green.earth. The link is also in the description. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider leaving us a review. And if you know anyone that might benefit from this content, would greatly appreciate your recommendation. I'm Pedro Zimmer, your host, and I hope to see you for the next episode of the Green Earth Podcast.